Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's wonderful to see those who are logging in. It looks like we have quite a few people for tonight. We'll go ahead and introduce ourselves really quickly because we're only here for about an hour or so. But if you do have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. But I'll go ahead and begin to introduce myself. So my name is Jessica Mascote. I serve as the Assistant Director of our Community Engagement team inside the Office of Admissions. So I'm so happy to have you guys here. And then I'll go ahead and pass it over to my colleague, Nick, who will introduce himself. And hopefully, from my end, it's not looking like it's frozen. So, Nick, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, good evening. My name is Nick Esposito, and I'm a financial aid advisor in the TCU Office of Scholarships and Financial Aid.
Well, for tonight, as Nick had mentioned, we'll be going over financial aid. What a fun topic, exciting as well, especially for my students and families here. If we have any seniors, we'll give a couple of reminders as far as our application deadline. So we'll go ahead and get started, and I'll go ahead and share my screen. All right, so this is our how-to series. It's our financial aid night. We have a couple of things that we want to cover, but first, before we go into the actual information, we have a fun activity for students and parents. And if my screen will allow me, I'll go here. So, quick question for everyone here is what year was TCU founded? I believe the chat is open. If it is disabled, go ahead and just put it in our Q&As and we'll be able to see what answers y'all have. We'll give it some time. All right. Okay. 1873, 1895. We're getting a couple of those in here. All right, let's see what the answer is. 1873. So great job for those who responded 1873. Our next question for you is what is TCU's mascot? This should be very easy. But if not, I mean, just kind of guess on there. You can put in the Q&A. All right, we have a couple coming in. Horn frog, super frog. Purple frog. I think now you guys are just doing this for fun. All right. So it's Super Frog. So you've seen Super Frog on campus or at events. It is our actual mascot. Also, fun fact about TCU is that we are the only institution on the entire nation that has a horned frog as its mascot. So go us. All right. So, a couple of things we just kind of want to remind you as far as fun facts about TCU. We are sitting a little bit over 11,000 students on campus. This is solely undergraduate students. We have a little bit over 1,000 graduate students, so we are continuing to grow. However, we are still going to be remaining the smallest among the Big 12. So, yay for us. And then these are just additional fun facts if you haven't known about TCU. Our average class size is about 22. We actually have double the national average of our retention rate. So we are sitting at 93%. And if you haven't heard already, TCU has been number one for happiest students across the nation. This says a lot about what we offer as far as the resources and opportunities that we provide for our students. And then we're also top 100 national university. We've actually been in the top 25 in several different categories and top 10 as well. So I will go ahead and encourage you all to look into the Princeton Review for those ratings as well. And then, of course, we have representations just from all over the world, over 90 different countries. I actually have the privilege of working with our domestic and international students, specifically coming from Mexico and the Caribbean islands as well. But just a couple of fun facts there. And then I will go ahead and lead it off to Nick, who will be talking about the Office of Scholarships and Financial Aid. Most importantly, you are here to learn a little bit more information, especially for my seniors here tonight. Applications have already opened. The CSS profile and FAFSA have already opened up. But once again, if you guys have questions, you can also drop it in the Q&A. I will go ahead and make sure that we try to answer these questions live, if not by the end of the presentation. So Nick, you want to go ahead and take it off from here?
Yeah, I'll take
Awesome.
it. I'll take it away. All right. So, uh, yeah. So the overview that I'll be covering during this presentation are the types of financial aid, the application process, cost, important deadlines, and then at the end, the financial aid contact information, how to reach us, and then any questions y'all might have. All right, so sources of financial aid. So the federal government is the largest source of financial aid in the US. The Pell Grant comes from the federal government. Federal work study comes from the federal government, as well as federal student loans, such as the subsidized loan and the unsubsidized loan, and also the Parent Plus loan, also known as the Direct Plus loan. And you'll be eligible for these opportunities by applying for the FAFSA. Next is states. So in Texas, there's the Texas Grant and the Texas Educational Opportunity Grant. So if you qualify for those grants and are a Texas resident, then they'll be awarded to your financial aid portal by myself and my team. And colleges and universities, so institutions often provide institutional aid, which comes from their own funds, so our own funds here at TCU, and that includes need-based aid, which is based on family's financial situation. And some schools use the CSS profile for a more in-depth assessment, which I'll talk about later. And then also merit-based aid, so awarded for academics, athletic, fine arts, or leadership achievements. And I'll touch more on that later as well. Private sources, this includes like foundations, nonprofits, community organizations. So private scholarships, such as like the Coca-Cola scholarship or the Gates scholarship, those are considered from private sources and corporations. Private loans, so those are offered by private lenders, credit unions, banks, and those require credit checks when applying for those private loans. And then employers, some employers offer educational assistance benefits, and some companies offer scholarships to dependents of employees. And on this slide, I'll talk about gift aid and then self-help aid. So gift aid is financial aid that does not need to be repaid. It's essentially, free money for college. And the types of gift aid include grants. Those are often based on financial need, such as the Pell Grant, which I mentioned earlier. And then scholarships, those are often based on merit, but can be based off of financial need as well. So need based. Some just key notes. They don't require repayment. Often comes from the government, like the Pell Grant, colleges, or private organizations. And self-help aid, that includes things such as student loans. So student loans must be repaid with interest after graduation or leaving school. Work study programs, so students have the opportunity to work on campus with a part-time job to earn money to help cover expenses. So that those self-help aids kind of helps bridge the gap after all the gift aid has been applied. There, I do want to dive into some different types of loans, so federal versus private loans. So I spoke about them earlier, but federal loans include the subsidized and unsubsidized loans from the FAFSA, and for this current academic year, there's a fixed interest rate of 6.39% for the 2025-2026 academic year. The interest rates for the 26-27 year haven't been set yet, and those will be determined in next July, so July 2026. The direct parent plus loan, that is taken out in the parent's name, and the interest rate for that can be high. It's at 8.94% right now for this year, with a 4.228 origination fee of the total loan amount, meaning that before the loan disperses into account, 4.228% of that loan amount is deducted by the Department of Education as a fee. So let's say there's a $50,000 loan, approximately 47,000 of that is what TCU would receive because of that origination fee. And if you have good to great credit, you can potentially secure a loan on the private market with a lower interest rate than the Parent Plus loan, which is at 8.94%. And private lenders, so private loans, those are your Sallie Mae, your SoFi, College Avenue, any sort of credit union. Those would fall under the private lender section. So those can be taken out in the student or parents' names. It just depends on who applies. But not all private lenders offer parent loans, so you just want to make note of that and be aware of that. We do have a recommended lenders list of lenders we work closely with, which can be found by just searching in the search engine TCU recommended lenders list, and interest rates are dependent on a credit check and credit history, and most loans require a cosigner if the student applies for the loan. Next slide, please. All right, scholarships. So all the academic and merit scholarships are determined by the admissions office and automatically reviewed when applying for admission. If you look up undergraduate admissions academic scholarships, TCU, you'll see the list of academic scholarships that students may be awarded along with the corresponding criteria of those scholarships. And need-based scholarships is determined by my office and financial aid and reviewed once the FAFSA and the CSS profile are completed and submitted. So, and we operate off of the information provided to us from the Department of Education and the IRS and from College Board. So that's how the need-based side of it goes. For outside scholarships can come from a variety of places, such as community organizations, high school programs, and online scholarship websites, such as Niche and Big Future through College Board. And if you are awarded an outside scholarship by one of those organizations, just make sure to report it to our office so we can award it to your financial aid package. Okay, so yeah, first year students awards are based primarily on a combination of grades, ACT or SAT score, and course curriculum rigor. For the purpose of admission, both admission and scholarship consideration, TCU super scores both the ACT and SAT, meaning it allows us to combine a test taker's highest section scores from different test dates to create a new elevated total score, which is typically higher than any single test composite score. They're both the SAT and ACT are optional in consideration of both admission and scholarship through 2027. So TCU is a test optional school with a do not harm policy, meaning submitting test scores can only potentially help you. It will not impact your application in any way, and there are no specific minimum scores that guarantee your admission or prevent it. Performance scholarships. So for performance scholarships, if you're pursuing something in the fine arts field, such as dance or music, TCU performance scholarships require an audition with the fine arts department, and they are competitive and they are combined with other financial aid you could potentially receive, such as those academic scholarships and any need-based aid that you might qualify for. VA benefits. So I'm not the chief expert on VA benefits, but one of our directors oversees the awarding of Chapter 33, Chapter 30, and Chapter 31 benefits. We are a yellow ribbon school, meaning TCU and the VA jointly cover tuition and fee costs that exceed the maximum post 9/11 GI Bill benefit for eligible veterans, which means we provide funds and the VA then matches. So if you have access to these VA benefits, please contact the TCU Registrar's Veteran Affairs Officer at that number and that email. His name is Eris, Eris, and we coordinate with him to just ensure that both the registrar's office and the financial aid office has all information and documentation necessary for these VA benefits. Okay, future scholarship opportunities. So our scholarship platform for additional scholarship opportunities is called the Horned Frog Scholar Search, or the HFSS. There are some available for first-year students. However, nearly all the scholarships listed there require an established TCU GPA. So just make note of that. Once you complete your first semester at TCU, then you'll be eligible to apply for a lot more. By completing the general application on the platform, students are automatically matched with relevant scholarship opportunities based on their profiles, with additional questions potentially unlocking more options. And there are both merit-based and need-based scholarships available on the HFSS. Need-based aid. So need-based aid is determined by the FAFSA, and the FAFSA and the CSS profile calculate a student aid index, or an SAI, which is a measurement of a family's resources and the family's ability to pay, not necessarily their willingness to pay. So the SAI is a formula-based index number ranging from negative 1,500 to $999,999. Where your SAI falls within that range helps us at TCU determine how much financial support you may need. So a negative SAI indicates you have a higher financial need. Let's say you have a negative 1,500, then you'll qualify for that maximum Pell Grant award. Your SAI isn't it's not a dollar amount of aid you'll receive, what your family is expected to provide, or your financial aid offer. It's just about discretionary income, specifically the amount of an individual's income that is available for spending after like the essentials uh, have been covered, like food and shelter. So after the submission of the FAFSA, you'll receive the FAFSA submission summary, which will show you your calculated SAI. And there's no income cutoff for qualifying due to the amount of variables the Department of Education operates off of from the IRS. Okay, applying for need-based aid. So the FAFSA is required by every school in the country to apply for federal, state, and in most cases, institutionally funded aid. So TCU requires the FAFSA to be eligible for institutional aid. So any additional aid outside of those academic scholarships. And it calculates the SAI, which I touched on earlier, and contains checks to determine applicants' eligibility to apply for federal aid, such as U.S. citizens or eligible non-citizens, like permanent residents. It utilizes a methodology dictated by Congress to calculate disposable income, which I mentioned earlier, and every year you must reapply. This year you'll be completing the 26-27 FAFSA because that will be your first year in college. And next year you'll complete the 2027-2028 FAFSA, your sophomore year of college, and then so on. And it's currently open now. Typically opens October 1st of each year, and it can be completed at studentaid.gov. The TASFA. So the TASFA is only for students in Texas unable to submit a FAFSA, specifically for Texas students who are undocumented. And the TASFA has to be completed along with supporting documentation such as tax transcripts and returns and W-2s. And that can be found at highered.texas.gov. All right, the CSS profile. So the CSS profile is required by some schools to apply and be eligible for institutionally funded aid, which is true of us here at TCU. It collects information not included on the FAFSA, such as home equity, non-custodial parent income, and other variable and liquid assets. It's filed as a supplement to the FAFSA, not in lieu of, and it's only submitted once upon the entering year, so you don't have to complete it every year like the FAFSA. And it's open now, opens October 1st, and it can be completed at cssprofile.collegeboard.org. Which parent's income is reported? So if both parents are married, married, both parents, unmarried, and both parents living together, both parents, divorced, the parent that provided the most financial support, usually it's the parent whom the student resides with and lives with, remarried, the parent and step parent, and then widowed, just the parent. And this is note, TCU may request non-custodial parent income for divorced and remarried parents. TCU for Texans. So if you meet the listed criteria, you may qualify for a tuition-free TCU education and receive additional financial assistance for food and housing. So the criteria, you're an incoming first-year student who meets the standard admission requirements, you're a Texas resident, you're Pell eligible, and your family's adjusted gross income or AGI is $70,000 or less, which is which will be determined by the FAFSA or the TASFA. If you qualify, there's full tuition coverage, additional assistance for food and housing needs, and renewable support that continues throughout your time at TCU. It doesn't cover other expenses such as fees and books, but additional types of financial aid and or scholarships may reduce or eliminate those costs. All right, cost of attendance or COA. So the cost of attendance is the total amount a school estimates a student will need to cover for one academic year, including both direct costs like tuition and fees and indirect costs such as room, uh, including uh, indirect costs such as transportation and personal and travel expenses. So this is a estimate set by the financial aid office, and it's just used to determine a student's financial need. The top chart on this slide shows our direct costs, and the bottom chart factors in the indirect costs for this academic school year. The direct things that TCU charges are tuition, housing, and food plan, and the student government fee. The housing and food plan listed there are averages. Not every dorm or meal plan is the same, with some costing more and some costing less. And let's see, we don't charge for books unless they're purchased at the TCU bookstore, but we just include them in our cost of attendance. The indirect costs are averages. Those aren't listed charges, but things we account for in a student's COA. And the Neely Business School, they do have a differential tuition associated with its classes, meaning there is an additional charge to take Neely courses, which is an additional $258 per credit hour, or $774 for a standard 3-hour credit hour for standard 3 credit hour class. So even if you're not a business major or majoring in something in the Neely School of Business and want to take business related classes, then you'll have to pay that differential tuition. And the cost of attendance updates are announced around January of each year, so I'm not sure what it's going to look like for the 2026-2027 academic year, but just tuition increases, so that should be expected annually. Okay, calculating financial need. So financial need is a factor used in determining how much financial aid the student may be offered. It's calculated by taking the cost of attendance from the institution, subtracting the SAI from the FAFSA, and the results determine the financial need. Okay, some important deadlines. So November 1st, that's the early decision one, early action admissions application deadline. Keep in mind, early decision is a binding commitment to attend the school if accepted, while early action is non-binding. November 1st is also the TCU for Texans and the FAFSA, TASFA, CSS profile priority deadline. December is when early decision and early action admissions notifications will be sent out, as well as the early decision and early action academic scholarship notifications. January 15th is when the early decision, early action commitment deposit is due. February 1st is the regular decision and early decision 2 admissions application deadline. It's also the FAFSA, TASFA, CSS profile deadline for all applicants. And from February 1st through May 1st, students will be receiving financial aid notifications from my office, the financial aid office, for their award letters. So their what financial aid they'll be receiving. And then March 15th is when early decision 2 commitment deposits are due. And May 1st is national candidate reply date and when all commitment deposits are due. And this is the financial aid office's contact information. We're open Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. That's our office phone number, our email, our website, and then our address and where our location is. Mhm. Okay, questions?
So thank you so much, Nick, for that. We do have a couple of questions that I was unable to answer during this time. But let me go ahead and pull this information. So there is a parent that is asking that they completed or they did the CSS profile. However, if the other parent is unable or unlikely, actually, in this case, unlikely to fill out the form and does not contribute at all financially, what happens if that parent doesn't do this? This is all that is lacking on the student's account.
Yeah, great question. Email our office. We have it's called a non-custodial uh, income waiver, and our office will just send you that waiver through email. So just reach out to our office through that TCU financial aid email.
And it looks like I'm having technical difficulties from my end. I'm not sure if Nick, you're able to see the Q&A. Um, and if so, please, you can read one of those questions.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So let's see. The financial calculator, that's accuracy. Uh, I'd say it's relatively accurate, but I just can't say unless we receive the information. So it's just dependent. And if I completed my FAFSA and CSS, should we also apply for TCU for Texans? If so, how? So you'll be evaluated to see if you qualify for TCU for Texans once we receive both the FAFSA and CSS profile. You won't have to apply for it. There's no a separate application for that, I should say. The total cost of the financial aid calculator, does it give a guarantee amount of money? I would say it's more of an estimate rather than a guarantee amount of money. And that mean, so the earliest a student will hear from admissions is December, even if the application was completed in September or earlier. So if the student applies early decision, early action, then they should be receiving a admissions decision in December. Yes. So the commitment deposits, how much are the commitment deposits? The deposits are $500 if I'm recalling correctly.
For me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. I'm still not able to see the rest of the Q&A, so feel free to go through those questions as I'm still connecting to the internet.
No worries. If a student applies through early action, are the FAFSA and CSS profile uh, due by November 1st? So yeah, that's the priority deadline for the FAFSA and CSS profile. And was this recorded? Yes, this presentation is being recorded.
And we will follow up with students with this recording, so you should receive it in the next couple of days as well.
All right. How strict is the income guidelines for the TCU for Texans? If a family's AGI is $70,100, but the student aid index is around negative 1450, would they hypothetically qualify? Uh, it's just dependent on the information we receive. If because we also will evaluate assets, so it's just dependent.
Are you, am I frozen on your end?
Uh, it appears so. Do you have a better chance of getting merit or financial aid if you do early action? No, there's no, yeah, there's like no better or worse chance of getting merit or need-based aid if you do early action. Applying early action, you'll receive your decision earlier as well as your financial aid award letter. So all the financial aid that you'll be receiving. So that's the um, sort of the difference. How should we decide if we should pay the deposit if we do not know our financial aid packet? So all the deposits are um, ultimately due May 1st. So that's when all commitment deposits are due. So yeah, if you would like to wait to pay it until May 1st, that's completely fine because by then you should be getting all your uh, other financial aid packages from other institutions and whatnot. Okay. Does TCU allow scholarships outside of what TCU may grant you? Yeah, so like those scholarships I was mentioning from those other like scholarship websites, like Big Future, or if you apply for like the Coca-Cola scholarship, then yeah, we'll put those scholarships on your financial aid awards and you'll receive those funds.
See another question on here. Um, any scholarships or programs to get in-state tuition as an out-of-state? So I do want to go ahead and make this clear. TCU, we are a highly selective university. We're a private university as well. So both in-state and out-of-state students, as well as international students, that it will be the same amount as far as tuition comes. Now, we do require students to live on campus their first 2 years. After that, we always see students get together with other roommates, have a house, have an apartment. So the tuition will remain the same, but as far as housing and meal plans, that would look differently once you hit your junior and senior year as well. But it is the same price for in-state and out-of-state students. And then there is another question that is someone is asking, when does TCU send acceptance letters out? So just going back to what Nick had mentioned, if you will be applying for early action or early decision one, you'll receive an admission decision from us through your portal sometime by mid-December. If you are applying, as long as your application is complete, we're not missing anything. If you are applying for regular decision or early decision two, you'll receive a notification about admission decision relatively mid-March, if not the latest by April. So that only probably gives you about a month or so until the May 1st deposit deadline from us. So it just really depends when you're applying to TCU. And as long as you have everything completed and turned in, you should hear from us relatively soon. But once again, if you are submitting your application November 1st for either early action, early decision, you'll hear from us by mid-December.
Yes. Okay. Is it a one-time 500 deposit? Yes, it's just a one-time deposit for commitment deposit. Mm,
I do see a question. I'm not sure if it's been answered already. When do you find out your financial aid package if you're submitting early action? So, if and when you are admitted to TCU, we try our best to include your financial aid package there. You'll see it through your My TCU portal, as long as you have also filled out the CSS profile and the FAFSA or TASFA. Now, if you did not indicate on your application that you're interested in financial aid, it's not going to show up as a requirement on your checklist. However, for those that indicate that they are interested in financial aid, it will show up as a requirement on your checklist. So it will tell you if we are still missing your CSS profile or FAFSA slash TASFA as well. Um, but once again, if and when you are admitted to TCU, you've completed and you've applied for financial aid, you should receive a financial aid package at the time of your admission decision. At least that's what we try our best to do for you all. And if you do have additional questions with that, you could also reach out to financial aid. There may be additional items that they may be needing, which is why it's important for students to review your emails and make sure that you're on top of things.
I have a question here. So for international students, the only way is to apply for financial aid is with the CSS profile,
That
or do they still allow merit-based scholarships based on their first semester performance?
So that's a great question for international students. The financial aid requirement that we ask for you to fill out is the CSS profile. As far as academic scholarships, going back to what we had mentioned earlier, every student will automatically be considered for academic scholarships. Now, it's not a guarantee for academic scholarships. However, just like how we are selected for admission, it's also going to be competitive for academic scholarships. But as Nick had mentioned, going through the Horn Frog Scholar Search, there are very few first year scholarships on there. But once again, it's going back to the student, making sure you're doing your diligent work and researching outside external scholarships so you can apply for those. And then that information, if you are awarded a scholarship outside of TCU, then just notifying the financial aid office as well as the letter that's needed saying that you are a recipient of that scholarship as well.
Another question for you, Jessica. Do you have to live on campus even if the student lives close by?
It's a great question. So you do not have to live on campus if you live within a 30-mile radius of campus. So you can opt out, but it has to still be approved by the residential housing. So as if you do live within 30 miles, you're welcome to commute as well.
Another question, Jessica. Do you notify regardless of whether the student is accepted or not?
Yes, so we will still notify a student if they have been accepted or unfortunately denied at this round. When I say this round, if a student is denied at TCU, the other option would come through as a transfer student. So you can still have another opportunity to apply to TCU, but it won't be until you transfer in. So having 12 credit hours. The information is also going to be through our transfer website. So I highly recommend for you to look into that. Otherwise, everything else would be through your email and portal information.
Is TCU still requiring first year students to leave their cars at home for the 2026 2027 school year?
Yes, that is correct. We will require first year students to leave their cars at home unless there's a certain circumstance. I don't do anything with parking and transportation. That's going to be more of a question for them. But there's going to be a lot more construction that's happening on campus because we are expanding, and you'll see our plans if you haven't heard about it yet. But we are expanding our campus community. So we're adding more additional residential housings, more buildings. But once again, although we're growing, we're still going to be remaining the smallest among the Big 12. But that's a great question.
When does TCU receive the CSS profile if you've already completed it? So usually we receive it within 24 hours in our system. So if you've already completed it, then we've already received it in our system.
I do see a question on here. If we applied via Common App, will they still have a portal? So this is a great question that I can answer from the admission side. If you are applying through the Common App, Coalition App, Apply Texas, you'll still receive information from us on how to set up your My TCU portal. Same thing if you're applying directly through our website. Although you're submitting your application, there's additional items that you'll still have to complete for us, which is why it's important for you to review your emails. You'll receive more information as far as how to register for your MyTCU portal. Through that email, you'll register and then you'll be able to log in through your portal to see your checklist items, see what's missing, what we have received so far. And if you have any additional questions, you're welcome to reach out to your admission counsel a counselor or frogmail at tcu.edu as well. All right, there is another question on here. So I do have a student that is applying for a particular a scholarship program at TCU. So how does stacking outside scholarships work? That's a great question. So if you are a recipient of a full tuition cost scholarship, then unfortunately other scholarships that also cover the same amount, like for tuition, will not be able to stack. However, if you are a recipient of a academic scholarship and you are bringing out or bringing in additional scholarships, those could stack as far as that. And you could also correct me if I'm wrong on here, Nick, for any external scholarships. From my understanding, that can stack, but for a full tuition, you're already having that covered. If you do have additional scholarships that are cash based, so more of like, hey, you can use it for books or other items, then that's going to be already listed on your scholarship. But anything dealing with external scholarships, contact the financial aid office for sure. What other questions? Wow, these are great questions, y'all. Is TCU requiring first year students? Okay, so I've already answered that. I just want to make sure. What are some benefits of out of state students coming to your school with low income? I'm coming from New York. So that's a great question. So, because we are a private university, as I mentioned, or I don't think we've actually mentioned it, but about 80% of our students that attend TCU come on some form of academic scholarship or financial aid need-based scholarship. So that takes into account your FAFSA, um, and your CSS profile. So it just really depends on your family's income and situation. Now, as Nick had mentioned, CSS profile is a one-time thing. FAFSA is recurring, so you would have to apply every year as a current TCU student. So we do pretty well with packaging our students, but it all deals with what your family's financial situation is. But the benefits is if you do qualify for need-based scholarships, if you're Pell eligible, you'll receive that information. You'll receive that through your FAFSA, what is it called now? Like the SAR report, the student aid report that gives you what you have been awarded from the federal and state government. And then you can see how easily that can be, transferred over to TCU. I think on FAFSA, you have up to 10 colleges that you can submit your FAFSA to. Is that correct, Nick? Am I wrong?
20
Oh,
actually.
great. Never mind. The more
Mhm.
the merrier. So as long as you list however many schools that you are thinking of applying, that's great. But even just add additional schools on there. You never know. Sometimes we have students like submit their application and they're like, you know what? I didn't even think about maybe applying to this school. Add as many schools as you can. As Nick had mentioned, there's up to 20, so you can list up to 20 schools. So that way it's easier for their office to receive that information. But once again, just checking your email for additional items that they may be needing for sure. Is there a question you want to answer, Nick, on here? We're getting lots of questions, which is great.
Yes, lots of good questions. Uh,
So there is one that I can ask you. We have
mhm.
someone that is asking, can you clarify the difference between FAFSA and TASFA, and what is the program TCU offers to help families with low incomes? My apologies if I missed this.
Yeah, so the difference between the FAFSA and the TASFA, so the FAFSA is if you're a US citizen or an eligible non-citizen, then you would fill out the FAFSA for federal eligibility and federal aid. And the TASFA is only for uh, Texas students who are undocumented to be evaluated for state aid and then TCU institutional aid.
The question from someone. When does financial aid application need to be submitted by for early action or decision? Can it be submitted later? So that's a great question. So in order for your application, if you've indicated that you're interested in financial aid on your application, then we require the CSS profile and the FAFSA or TASFA information in order for us to even review your application and then provide you with an admission decision. So the earlier do it, the better. If you submit it later, we won't be able to review you for November 1st for early action or early decision. So you want to make sure that your application is complete. In order for your application to be completed, we have to have that information as well. What kind of timeline is it for the interview process for the Chancellor Scholarship? So this is a great question. So although students who submit their application will automatically be considered for academic scholarships, including the Chancellor Scholarship. Chancellors, we require students, if you want to be considered for Chancellors, we require students to submit the application by November 1st for either early action or early decision. If you apply by regular decision or early decision two, you would no longer be considered for the Chancellor Scholarship. This is the requirement that we have for Chancellor students. Typically, these students are like definitely on it. Make sure sure they're checking their emails, but we also require students to fill out the Honors College application. So if you elect to be considered for Chancellor Scholarship, fill out the Honors College supplemental essays, which are two, I believe, through your portal, and then submitting your application by the November 1st deadline, but also making sure that you're applying for the early action or early decision as well. All right. I know we have a little bit more time, so we can answer a couple more questions here before we end for tonight, okay?
Jessica, can you explain the Chancellor's Scholarship and what that entails?
Yeah, so the Chancellor Scholarship, as I mentioned, so when you submit your application, if you're submitting by November 1st or early action or early decision one, we require students to fill out the Honors College application, which is two additional essays, in order for you to be considered for the Chancellor Scholarship. If you are selected to be a finalist, we will communicate with you early January and send you an invite to do interviews in February. And then by March, you should be notified if you are a recipient of that scholarship. And then you just have to communicate with us if you are going to commit to TCU by also just reaching out to us, your admission counselor. But by early January, we will notify you if you're a finalist for that. We typically bring in 140, 150 students to campus, and then we award about 40 scholarships for that. So it is highly competitive. So I have another question, Nick, and this is referring to the CSS profile. So I have a student that has checked their My TCU portal. Their CSS profile is deemed as awaiting. They completed it and submitted it last week. Should they be doing something else on their end to make sure that we have the CSS profile?
So, uh, just reach out to our office and then I can double check. Send us an email to that financial aid email earlier on the contact information slide, and I can confirm, or one of my colleagues can confirm that if we received it, or if there's still something outstanding on uh, that needs to be done.
So another question is, what happens if you get accepted and you don't qualify for any scholarships or aid? When and who will let you know if you can apply for the loans? Okay, so I'm going to assume here if you have completed your FAFSA and CSS profile, we have all the information that's needed. If you do not receive any type of academic scholarships from us or need-based scholarships, I would assume too it will tell you what loans are being offered. But I'm going to let Nick, who works in financial aid, answer more in depth if you have that.
Yes, so if you aren't uh, awarded an academic scholarship, any need-based scholarships, then at that point it would just have to be exploring loan options, whether it's the Parent Plus loan, which is the federal loan on studentaid.gov, or loans on the private market through a private lender such as College Ave, SoFi, Sallie Mae. You can find our recommended lenders list online, which contain more private loan options.
And related to chancellors. How can someone apply for the honors college? So that's a great question. So if you are applying for the honors college, you will see that on your checklist. So every student will have their checklist items of what we have received and what we're missing. However, there's also an optional piece on there where it would tell you to apply for the John V. Roach Honors College. You'll just click on that link and then you're going to see two additional essay prompts. Same thing if you are applying for nursing, there are 2 additional essays that you would have to complete in order for you to be considered for the nursing program as well. All right, so one last question, Nick. I'll go ahead and allow you to pick a question and we'll go from there.
Okay. Let me see. If you are using benefits such as Yellow Ribbon in Chapter 35, are you still eligible for TCU scholarships and financial aid? Uh, Reach out to the registrar's office and our office, and then it's just dependent on the certain benefits and whatnot. So I can't answer that question now, but if you want to get that process started, then email the registrar's office to get in contact with our VA benefits liaison there, and then we'll coordinate with him for any VA benefits you're planning on applying to TCU.
Thank you so much, everyone. We appreciate you joining us this evening. Once again, we will follow up with the recording and you will see the contact information for financial aid listed on that PowerPoint. But otherwise, you can also Google, find the TCU Office of Scholarships and Financial Aids information on the webpage, and then reach out to them directly. All right, we're looking forward to seeing you guys and reading your applications. Best of luck in your senior year for my seniors here tonight. Thank you so much for sending us hearts. We love y'all too. A wonderful evening. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.